This is UMAR AHMED for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. Last time I saw Barry Hearn was in Saudi Arabia, now we're in New York. Never see you in the UK, Barry.
Well, listen, the world's our oyster, isn't it? I mean, it's amazing that we get to go to all these places, and we must never, ever get complacent over how lucky we are. So, welcome to New York. Brilliant views and loving it, loving every second.
Yeah, in the Dazn and Matchroom offices. We know you've just been in Miami as well. Yeah. How was that?
That was good. A Sportel trade show for TV companies around the world. This shift away from linear to digital gains momentum every day. More targeted audience. Hopefully, a massive success over the years to follow. But there's a lot of investment involved, so we just have to wait and see. Good news.
Talking about moving to digital content, we know Dazn are going to launch in the UK.
Yeah.
Starting on May the 2nd with Canelo looking like either Billy Joe or Cam Smith. It looks like Billy Joe at the moment, but it's a great one for Dazn to start with in the UK.
I mean, they're major players. They're investing all around the world, and you know we have a quandary, obviously, because we have a strong relationship which we've nurtured over 30 years with Sky. Dazn are coming in with their own product. It's just the way of the world. It's actually a tribute to all of us involved that we've somehow made boxing this successful sport that people want to invest in, and fighters are getting the benefit because of the opportunities that's being created and the purses they're getting. We can't stand in the way of progress. So it's going to be interesting to see how it develops, but certainly they're going to be major players.
We know Sky's contract with Matchroom is still 2021.
Yeah.
Dazn have now got the exclusive rights to Matchroom USA shows, Golden Boy shows, Golovkin shows in the UK and loads of other territories. How do you think this is going to impact Sky in this year?
It's going to be, well, in this year, I don't think it'll have a major impact because there's a lot of big fights out there to be made, and frankly, too many for any one broadcast. There's a limit on the number of shows that people can do. So Dazn have a clear understanding of how many shows they want to do in the USA, and Sky have a budget with us exclusively in the UK until June 2021. It's going to be interesting how it develops, and people will be watching. So no one, you know, predictions are easy to make, but actually the reality is numbers. You know, you mustn't get too carried away, too over-optimistic about what you're going to do, because we're in a changing world, and IFL, Sky, Dazn, they're all part of this changing process. At the end, the only thing that doesn't lie to you are numbers. So you actually see how many hits you do, and you can evaluate whether IFL is making progress. Dazn can see how many subscribers they get. They can see whether their planned expansion is working. Sky have got their own ratings, which they compare with year on year, their pay-per-view revenue. So it's a complicated mix where there's going to be a lot of speculation, but I don't think any real answers will come probably until towards the end of this year, once people have had a chance to analyse the data and to see what really works. But having said that, boxing is already the winner.
Yeah, it's good for Eddie as well, because he's got working with 2 broadcasters now in the UK.
Yeah, it's good for Eddie because he's probably been more responsible than most in reigniting the passion for boxing. He's been a major player. His personal profile is probably bigger than most professional fighters, other than the AJs of this world and the Canelos in America. And that's going to be significant. You know, Dana, looking back on it, or looking back on the history of television and combat sports, Dana White became as big or bigger than pretty well anyone in UFC until McGregor came along and things like that. If you look at WWE, you had the same thing, which was personality driven from the front. And what that means is that the older market, myself included, are very much historic. The Arams, the Warrens and all that, they're good operators, of course they are, but they're not cutting it with the new generation of digital subscribers. They would be viewed with respect as someone who's paid their dues over the years, but not with the same excitement for the new audience. So Eddie's position is interesting because I don't know which direction he's going to go. He'll be encouraged by me to go in whatever direction he feels most comfortable with.
Still got to insist though, Sky for this year have got exclusive rights to the Matchroom UK shows.
Yep.
Or Andy Joshua fight.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and so they should have, because loyalty should always be repaid. But in a changing world, my job, sitting at the head of the decisions across Matchroom Sport, would be to plan our next 5 years, 7 years, you know, as we did with our darts and other general sports. We did a 7-year deal with Sky 2 years ago, and I'm very, very happy that we're locked in for that period. Now we have to look at boxing, because the boxing world today is completely different to the boxing world of 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And who knows what the future has, but one thing's for sure, I think you'll find Eddie will be at the top of his game for it.
Where do you think the pay-per-view market lies? We've heard Eddie say it's dead to a certain point in the US. What about in the UK?
Yeah, I think there's not such a... The big problem with the US was the price difference, and I think it's still changeable and changing. You know, when you look at fights that are between $80 and $90 for a household, that's expensive even by American standards. It only works if you get all your friends round or whatever. UK, and of course Dazn goes into the US at, you know, $10 or whatever, and it looks bargain time, which is probably why HBO decided quite early to get out of boxing, because they realised the game had changed and they didn't want to compete. Not they couldn't compete, they didn't want to compete. They couldn't make money in their normal business model, so they left, and that's understandable. The UK is not quite the same as that, because, you know, if it's 19.95 or 24.95, yes, it probably, you know, Dazn will come in at whatever figure lower than that, but it's not life-changing amount different. So it will make a difference whether it brings Sky's prices down or whether Dazn create a separate pay-per-view platform within their monthly subscription is another possibility. And I think fight fans are educated enough to know that if they want to see these massive fights, there's a price to pay. It's just a question of what that price is.
But in terms of their initial entry, Dazn, we know £4.99 is the price point, which is very affordable.
Very affordable, and as a marketing tool, something that people should take advantage of if they're a fight fan. But I would predict, I think with some certainty, that that price structure won't stay the same in the long term.
Which changed in the US, so...
Yeah, and it may change again. You have to remember, Dazn is a very disruptive force in the world of television, in both America and around the world. And as a disruptive force, they are constantly evolving with knowledge of experience of how individual markets respond to their offerings. So I wouldn't be surprised to see wholesale changes. But at the same time, they're going to be very aggressive in the market, which is, again, good for the sport and good for boxers.
Barry, a couple of weekends ago, we saw ESPN and Fox put on Wild Fury 2. There's reported figures of 800,000 buyers in the States. What do you make of that figure?
It's a difficult one, because there were 3 different pay-per-view platforms in America showing it, and I'm not completely au fait with the figures. The good thing is, in America, they do release these figures accurately, unlike our UK broadcasters, who seem to keep their cards very close to their chest. For some reason, I don't understand why they don't just be totally transparent about it. This one was great, this one was terrible. Who cares, you know? But I think when you break down that figure between the ESPN audience, which I think was somewhere around 300, 350,000 buys on ESPN pay-per-view, Fox, yeah, it probably makes about sense around 700 to 800,000. Although the show itself, when you multiply the numbers, doesn't look, again, you have to be careful, because you're not necessarily in control of all the facts. You know, what Guaranteed did Fury and Wilder get, there's different figures on that, anywhere between 15 and 30 million each. But when you run the numbers, as I do, because I'm a numbers man, there's not a lot of extra available if I'm hearing the BT figure was well down on what they projected. And that would mean that it cost BT money. It's interesting, not because of what happened, because everyone's going to get paid and the fighters made a lot of money out of it. The promoters may not have made anything. I would be worried about what deal you've put in place for the rematch, because it's unlikely that the rematch, whilst it's a very interesting fight, no question, because Wilder has always got a puncher's chance, does it do the same numbers, more or less? I guess it does slightly less, but not significantly less. But if the first fight wasn't a financial success, then how is that going to implicate? And being cynical, you know, I always get these phone calls is, say, so what do you think we should pay Deontay to step aside? And like, no, let him fight. oh no, we think Deontay could be talked into. They're like, does that mean you've done your brains on the first one and you're trying to get out of the second one? And it's like, no. So I'm just an old cynical fart that sits in the corner and listens to all this stuff, and numbers don't.
But maybe they want to make that undisputed fight straight away. So
they do, because they want to. They like to get out of the rematch with Deontay Fury and with Tyson Fury and Deontay. If it's not financially viable, if the first one, and we don't know for sure, if the first one didn't make any money or maybe even lost money, why do you want to do the second one? Because the aim of any business is eventually, and some people should listen to this, eventually every business has to be profitable, has to be sustainable, and if it's not, it's doomed for failure. And boxing is no different from any other business. So we'll wait and see. I find it quite funny when people say, the fight fans, yes, they want everything instantly, It's like, ignore the reality of, it's like AJ going to Saudi. Well, he shouldn't have gone to Saudi. He should have gone to England, and if he'd have got 15 million in England instead of 50 or 60 million over there, it's like, have you ever had 15 million yourself, mate? And it is a fight. The fight game is a dangerous sport with a short career. So therefore, the responsibility on us is a fiduciary responsibility to maximise our clients' earnings, and we will always do that. Of course, I'd love every fight in my back garden, and I'd like to be the only spectator. It don't work commercially. So we'll have to wait and see, but I'm pleased. The way it's worked out is fabulous. Provided, and I think Eddie's right as well. Let's sign up that fight, subject to wins. Let's do it now, because it's not a difficult fight to make. Throw all the money in the middle, cut it down the middle.
50-50?
No, I mean, listen. Anthony would like 60-40 because he's got more belts than Tyson. Tyson Fury would say, well, I'm the lineal champion and I've just got a draw, I'm undefeated and I've got the WBC, which is the best one, so I want more. Actually, there's so much money in this fight, there's a chance for not being greedy. Just throw it in, let's work to make this the biggest financial fight there's ever been, and then just go down the middle of it. So if once everyone says yes, that's done, so sign it now. Subject to Pulev getting beat by Joshua, Wilder getting beat by Fury. And both of those fights may not work out that way anyway. But I think the fight fans would be much happier to know, subject to, this is done. And that's what I would be going for if I was Eddie, which I'm not.
Location's going to be an issue though, isn't it?
Yeah,
America, UK, Saudi.
It's easy location. Where's the most money?
Probably Saudi, Barry.
Well, then we'll go Saudi. The only question for me, and it's not being disrespectful to British fans or American fans, is this is the fight game. Both of these fighters could be fighting the last fight of their career, both of them could get injured, whatever. You go where the most money is. If it's marginal, then your heart can rule your wallet. If it's not marginal, your wallet always rules your heart. It's just common sense. I mean, if you say you're going to get 15, 20, 25 million each for fighting in the UK, or more, but someone says I can make that 2, 3, 4 times as much. If it was an extra couple of million, you could be a nice guy about it. But you have to have some common sense and just be honest. We're going where the money is. And that's what'll happen.
What happened with the Pulev fight? Because I know there was offers from Turkey and the Middle East, where Andy could have made much more than at Wembley, at Tottenham. So
it's a good example where Anthony could have made more money going to Turkey or Middle East, but not enough money to make a significant difference. So if it's and it's all marginal, isn't it? It's a person what you want out of life. Anthony's a wealthy young man. He's got a plan to be boxing professionally for the next few years, and he's aware of his fan base and his responsibilities up to a certain level. And the level that was on offer from alternate venues London wasn't significantly enough more to make us change our mind. And I think Anthony on now is absolutely over the moon that he's boxing in London, because it's been 18 months and it's nice to come back with the belts, especially to defend.
Away from financials and all that sort of stuff, what did you make of Tyson's performance in the ring?
Terrific. I mean, terrific. There's no point in saying I thought Deontay Wilder was going to stop him, because I've said for years on IFL and other interviews, Deontay Wilder's just not very good. Technically, he's awful, but he can punch. And you know, a puncher's always got a chance, but if a puncher doesn't land a punch or doesn't land a significant punch, he goes back to being what he really is, technically awful. And Tyson did a job on him, and he did a brilliant job on him. He smashed him up. It was so one-sided. I think it's only the fact that the split had been arranged before for the rematch that forced, you know, from Deontay Wilder, again, think about, sorry to get back to money all the time, but you know, from Deontay Wilder to take, I don't know, 40% of the rematch.
He's going to be 60-40 in
yeah,
favour of
that's
Fury.
right. Instead of taking how much for fighting, I don't know, an Andy Ruiz on a Showtime card as a defeated champion, what's he going to make? You know, 5 million, 6 million, 7 million. What's he going to make? 40%, you know, significantly more than that. And the clever thing they did, I think, the clever thing that all parties involved did on the rematch clause was put that time stipulation that the fight has to happen by July. Because otherwise there would have been a lot of messing about, you know. And I think that's, for fight fans, is a big plus, that we know we've got some activity in the heavyweight scene that's going to resolve. Because there's other issues, aren't there? You know, what does Dylan White do? You know, he's got Povetkin. You know, what about Usyk? You know, he's a mandatory for Joshua. He's going to have a fight, obviously, looks like Chisora at some stage, but there's an awful lot of interest and activity in the heavyweight division, which is great for boxing because it does filter down through all the divisions. But at the same time, you don't want delays. You know, you don't want inevitable delays. So I think they've done a good job on the rematch, and I think all parties are happy. It's a bit like you say about putting together Joshua Fury. You know, it's not a long conversation. It's just like, boys, this is what's going to happen. And by the way, if you don't like that, then let's all just go public. You're effectively saying you don't want to fight. We, and I can tell you this now, Matchroom Boxing, AJ Boxing Promotions, are absolutely ecstatic about the prospect of fighting Tyson Fury. Ecstatic. Not, oh yes, this is a tough fight. We're over the moon to get the opportunity to be, obviously, the ultimate heavyweight champion of the world, and also styles make fights. Tyson Fury is awkward. When he comes forward, he's less awkward. He's got great movement. He doesn't have a concussive punch. But as we saw against Wilder, he hits hard enough over a period of time to make a dent in anybody. It's a great fight, and one that I'm looking forward to, and one I'm very confident that AJ wins quite comfortably.
I've got to ask you that, Barry, because you did say to me in Saudi Arabia that Tyson Fury is a fantastic fighter, but he can't punch.
He can't punch.
You still maintain that?
Oh yeah. I mean, listen, he can punch, and when you can punch, I can punch. I'm talking about concussive punches at the highest level. Deontay Wilder can punch. Can't do much else, but he can punch. He gets leverage in his shots. He's got his body through the motion. You know, you've only got to look at the body position on punches to see where everything, you know, as you know, everything comes from your hips, and it's a timing issue. Tyson Fury, of course he can punch. He hits things. He's a massive man and weighs like 19 stone or something, of course. But there's a difference between being able to punch and having a concussive punch that actually knocks people out. And throughout his career, not just the last fight, he hasn't been a puncher, because a lot of people have gone the distance with him that any puncher of reasonable ability would have got out of there. But he does hit you hard, and he hits you often. And those are the punches that Deontay Wilder just broke him up and destroyed his heart and took away his will to stand on his feet. Not really concussive in terms of the knockdowns, but barrages that took away your legs and your heart.
I agree in terms of a one-punch power like Wilder.
Yeah. Well, that's the punches you worry about, isn't it? Because if you're a top heavyweight, you must have a certain amount of resistance to punches. The question mark over AJ has been recently, and not so recently, his ability to take that type of punch. And it may be a weakness at the very highest level, but it's not a weakness at a level under that. Now, if you get outboxed, outmaneuvered, you could in the same situation that Deontay got. You know, because boxing is, you know, you're on your own. It's quite transparent to what's happening. I mean, that Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury was in the same way as AJ and Ruiz, was like a masterclass of technique that couldn't be beat by the bloke in front of you. Ruiz could not possibly beat AJ the way that AJ boxed, and Deontay Wilder being unable to catch him with really concussive punches couldn't possibly beat Tyson Fury, and that's how it mapped out. But you know, the fact that we're having this conversation shows the level of interest in boxing, doesn't it? Because everyone's going to have different opinions, and someone will be wrong, and that someone might be me. I've been wrong so many times in my life. I mean, I'm sitting there, you know, as far as AJ and Ruiz at Madison Square Gardens, thinking, what time is the restaurant booked for? You know, it's just...
We were all thinking that, to be fair.
I know. When he went down to the third round, well, that's it, no problems at all. And then a few minutes later, Eddie's like, oh my God, we got beaten. My first reaction was, the rematch is going to be huge. This is still a business.
Back to Tyson, do you think he doesn't get the credit he deserves though? Because he has actually got a higher stoppage percentage than Dylan White and David Price. Yeah. He stopped Chisora in the rematch, he stopped Wilder in the rematch, and he stopped Steve Cunningham. They're three pretty impressive stoppages.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say about the Cunningham stoppage, but I don't want to pick over it. I think Tyson Fury is arguably #1 heavyweight in the world now. I can't be more complimentary than that. I think AJ might even be the outsider when they fight. I'm just telling you my personal feeling is I can't wait for the fight. I want to live long enough to see it, and I'm extremely confident of the outcome. And if I'm wrong, I shall, as always, put my hands up and say I got it wrong. Most of the time I get it right.
Have you heard John Fury's comments recently?
Yeah, he's great.
What did you make of them?
I don't know, give them $500 million each. Okay, Johnny, have you ever seen... My question to John Fury was, do you know how many noughts there are in $500 million? You know? Yeah, listen, he's his dad, he's his biggest fan, he's an outrageous bloke himself, he's lively. What did Eddie say the other day? He'd probably knock Eddie out if he sneezed at him or something. You know, like, I used to be involved with him when he was managed by Jack Trickett, I think, when he was fighting, and we did shows with him on, you know, he was game. And he's a dad. What do you think? I think my son is the best promoter in the world by a country mile. Do people think I'm mad? Well, if they do, that's okay, I'm his dad. And I think he's entitled to say what he wants about his son. And his son's a bloody good fighter, and he can fight. And as I say, we'll all have different opinions. But the one thing we won't have different opinions on is the numbers, because the numbers don't lie. So it's dead easy. Throw it in a pot, go down the middle, and let's do our job, maximising revenue, which we do better than anyone else in the world. And even John Fury would admit to that.
Barry, what did you make of Deontay's post-fight comments about his costume and that's why he lost?
Disappointing, really. I never know who actually advises these people, whether they actually think about things before they open their mouth. Do they engage their brain before they start spieling? Because any professional advisor or any friend who had your best interests at heart surely would say, you sound ridiculous. You know, a 40-pound uniform where you're walking 100 yards and your legs are gone. You're a trained athlete. Have you ever walked round your garden with your kid in your arms, weighs 40 pounds, and what was you, knackered? So no, and tampering the gloves and all that sort of stuff. These type of comments really show how Tyson has got into Wilder's head, in my view, that he is really desperately looking for some type of excuse, not for the general public, actually for himself, because the brain is a funny thing. The brain doesn't forget. You know, you get fighters that never been off their feet. The first time they get knocked down, they're a lot easier to get knocked down again. Undefeated fighters getting beaten, they're a lot easier to beat in the future because the brain remembers, oh, I didn't like that. I didn't like that right hand. I've got to be careful of that hook. And Deontay's obviously trying to do a job on himself more than anyone else to say, I am confident I can win this fight in the rematch because. But these reasons for the because made him look like a bit of a numpty, which is a shame because he's better than that. He is a dangerous, dangerous puncher, there's no question about that. And he could upset the apple cart in the rematch if he lands. I mean, he's had Tyson down twice. Of course, Tyson gets up because Tyson always gets up, but you know, that's the danger sign. And you know, Deontay could land flush on AJ's chin, and I'm not sure AJ wouldn't be down as well. That's called boxing, and you have to develop a style and a technique. The fact of life on Fury's fight was he got his tactics, whether it was him, his team, or whether they worked it out, his tactics were spot on. First time I've seen Tyson Fury come forward with intent in that fight, and he did it to take away the action and get Deontay on the back foot where he's less dangerous to punch. it was a plan well executed.
Well, all the belts on December were in America with PBC, with Wilder and Ruiz, and now they're all in Britain, 1 in Morecambe and 3 in Watford.
Yeah, but you know, it's boxing, isn't it? It's like, I don't know, 1990, I was the top dog. 1994-5, Warren was the top dog. Eddie's now the top dog. Al Heyman was making big inroads in America. Now it's like, Al who? Yeah, but it's an evolution, and you don't know where we're going to be in 6 months' time. You know what's going to be. That's, if we knew, this game wouldn't be so exciting. Don't forget, we're selling seats to people to come to watch boxing. What we've got to do is guarantee they only need the edge of that seat, and then we've cracked it. But you can't predict the future in boxing. It's one of the greatest things about it. I mean, and when you can, actually demand falls. You know, you put AJ in a fight on Sky now, which is if it was a mismatch fight, you know, people wouldn't buy it because they are educated to know what's quality, and that puts a special responsibility on promoters to make sure they deliver that.
Can you predict what's going to happen with Dillian Whyte? We know he's fighting Povetkin, but
I think Dillian Whyte's one of my favourite fighters. There's certain fights you'd really like to see. I think the first thing to say about Dillian Whyte is, yes, it's frustrating, but hats off to him. He's carried on. He's taken fights, you know, including Povetkin, dangerous fights. He's risked his mandatory position, and I think he'll continue to do that. And I think he understands he's a young man. He's getting better. He's getting more confidence, and these wins will serve him in good stead when he comes to the ultimate challenge. And when he gets the ultimate challenge, he will get a fantastic reward for his patience, because he's really earned the right, more so than most fighters I can remember. So him and Povetkin is a great fight. I see Dillian Whyte winning that by stoppage, but I think that's a great fight, and I'd love to see Dillian Whyte in with with Ruiz. I think that's a fabulous fight, and we'll wait and see. But you know, I warm more and more to Dillian Whyte. I just think he's a good bloke, and he's genuine. I like genuine people.
Well, if he keeps on winning, then he should. Well, yeah, he's mandatory for that WBC. So get the winner of Joshua Fury. So we'll get another all British undisputed fight.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's a crazy world, isn't it? I mean, when you study the history of boxing and you look at the heavyweight division in particular over the last 100 years, there's never been a time when we've been so, you know, prevalent. You know, and it's a compliment to British fight fans. I mean, you know, we know how difficult it is in America selling out arenas. And the reason is because boxing in America has been badly promoted for the last 10, 15 years, maybe longer.
There are a lot of other sports as well here, though, aren't there? So.
Well, there's a lot of sports everywhere else. I mean, we're up against Premiership football, you're up against darts. You know, we still don't hit the numbers of either. But we've created a market model that works for our broadcasters and the fans and for the fighters to get the type of rewards that's unprecedented. You know, fighters are earning money that's beyond comparison with previous years, other than the very best of Naz or the very best of Ricky Hatton, the very best of Lennox Lewis.
Chris Eubank, Nigel Benn.
Yeah, I mean, they never earned the same type of money. They sort of like £1 million fighters, which in those days was good money. But today, you know, you're talking about altogether different numbers. And you wouldn't get a Tony Bellew story 10 years ago, would you? Who goes out and earns, I don't know, 15 million, whatever, last few fights and retires happy man. And I like stories like that. I think boxing deserves it because the risks involved with the fighters.
Barry, before we close this off, we expect Billy Joe to fight Canelo May 2nd in Las Vegas. Quick word on that fight.
I like that. I mean, it's funny. If I was going to pick a fighter, I'm not necessarily a massive Billy Joe Saunders fan, but tactics and technique makes fights. If I was going to fix a fighter to have a realistic chance of actually beating Canelo, if I was Canelo, the last fighter I would have picked would have been Billy Joe Saunders. I would have definitely gone for Callum Smith. I think his style is a bit more predictable, a bit more easy to work out, and when you get up close with him, Canelo is a strong man and a great fighter. I think Billy Joe Saunders is in with a bit of a squeak on this, you know.
It's a bold move picking Billy Joe.
It's a very bold move. I mean, now, can he keep a level? See, I think there's a level that Billy Joe hasn't got to yet. This is the other thing. You know, I watch him fight, and I'm not sure in the past how professional and determined he's been, training regime. I think he needs to have that fear and also the opportunity and also the knowledge that, you know, I'm in a no-lose situation here. You know, he's going to get a shed load of money. But more importantly, he's got a chance to establish himself as a real legacy fighter. So bookmakers' odds will be interesting. Not that I gamble on boxing very often, but I'm going to be at that fight. I like that fight, and I like. The danger is that he's got to. He can't coast a bit. You know, he can outbox Canelo, I think, but does he get the nod from the judges in America? It's unlikely. So he's got to do a Tyson Fury on him, and I think Billy will be inspired a little bit by Tyson Fury. He's got to do a job on him, and that is a job for 12 rounds, and I think he's got a squeak.
Well, May 2nd looks to be very excited with White Povetkin in Manchester, and looks like Canelo Billy Joe Saunders in Las Vegas.
I know.
Great night of boxing, and yeah, Barry, thank you very much for
It's always a pleasure.
In New York. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I just think let's just remember how lucky people we are, you know. That we're at a time for boxing that in my lifetime I never imagined I'd see. And there'll always be critics out there, which we will always ignore. And we will go and do it our way, and our way generally is the right way. But we are very fortunate fight fans to have what we've got on display for the remainder of 2020, so enjoy.
Thanks for your time, Barry. Cheers.
Pleasure.